Did you know that in 2016, a professional cartographer discovered dozens of electronic devices arranged around trees in perfect ritualistic patterns? Kenji Nakamura was mapping Japan's infamous Aokigahara forest when his equipment started failing without explanation. First, his compass began spinning wildly in circles, then his GPS showed coordinates that didn't exist on Earth. But the real terror began when his digital camera captured human figures that weren't there. He marked the exact spot where every device malfunctioned, a perfect 50-meter circle. Other visitors reported identical failures at those same coordinates. Every single compass pointed toward one unmarked grove. When Nakamura finally entered that area, he found something that made his blood freeze. Dozens of abandoned phones, cameras, and GPS units were carefully arranged around healthy trees in deliberate patterns. His electromagnetic readings spiked to dangerous levels, yet the trees showed no signs of death. Someone or something had been collecting these devices for years. The most chilling part? The arrangement wasn't random. It was methodical, purposeful, like an offering to something unseen. Did you know that ingredients in a Chicago restaurant started moving by themselves, forming messages from the dead? Rosa Martinez had worked as head chef at Russo's Italian restaurant for 12 years, arriving every morning at 5 a.m. to prep fresh ingredients. On November 11, 2022, she laid out tomatoes, herbs, and pasta on the stainless steel counter in perfect rows. But when she turned away, something impossible happened. The tomatoes rolled themselves into circles, herbs sorted by type, pasta formed geometric patterns. Then the ingredients began spelling out words in Italian. Non dimenticar, don't forget. Flour pressed itself into handprints across every surface. Olive oil drew faces of strangers Rosa had never seen. But the horror peaked when raw meat started reshaping itself into human organs, still maintaining its bloody texture. Rosa recognized the faces in the oil as she discovered the truth. The restaurant was built on a former mortuary that operated from 1943 to 1987. In the basement, she found the original embalming equipment still intact. Every morning since, the ingredients continue spelling out names of people who died in that building. Did you know that animals at a zoo once predicted human deaths from miles away? Dr. Zachary Park had been studying animal behavior for 12 years at Metro City Zoo. On September 12, 2021, he was conducting his usual night shift observations using infrared cameras. Everything seemed normal until exactly 11:23 p.m. Every single predator in the zoo suddenly moved to the front of their enclosures. Lions, tigers, wolves, and bears all stared intensely in the same direction beyond the zoo perimeter. They began pacing in identical figure-8 patterns, never breaking their gaze from something unseen. Zachary traced their line of sight and realized they were all staring toward the city hospital 2.3 miles away. Their agitation grew stronger throughout the night, then suddenly they would become completely calm. He checked the hospital records and discovered something terrifying. Every time the animals peaked in agitation, then went calm, someone had died at that exact moment. The animals were sensing death from miles away, and they were now staring directly at his dying father's room. Did you know that in 2019, a fishing crew captured footage of a massive sea creature destroying a cargo ship? Captain Eric Haugen was leading a routine deep-sea fishing expedition off Norway's coast. The waters were calm, with normal maritime traffic passing overhead. Suddenly, his sonar detected something enormous, 200 meters long, moving directly beneath a passing freighter. Then the distress signal started. The cargo ship reported an unknown collision with a submerged object. Against his crew's warnings, Haugen decided to investigate. What they filmed next defied explanation. Enormous tentacles, thick as telephone poles, wrapped around the freighter's hull like giant pythons. The creature squeezed with crushing force, buckling the ship's metal superstructure like paper. The vessel tilted 30 degrees as it was dragged deeper into the black water. Then, for just a moment, a massive eye surfaced. Larger than a car, staring directly at their cameras. Both predator and prey vanished beneath the waves, leaving only debris floating on the surface. The footage remains unexplained to this day. Did you know that park rangers in Quebec are recording roars from creatures that shouldn't exist? In 2020, Michelle Dubois received her first complaint about mysterious sounds in the Laurentian Mountains. Cabin owners reported earth-shaking roars lasting 30 to 45 seconds, powerful enough to rattle windows. As a wildlife expert with 15 years' experience, she knew every animal sound in those forests. This was something else entirely. The calls only happened during new moon phases, when darkness was complete. Her audio analysis revealed frequencies impossible for any known North American wildlife. Even more disturbing, the vocalizations match prehistoric creature sounds from paleontological research. During a night patrol, she finally encountered the source 50 meters away. The roar was deafening, vibrating through her chest and bones. She recorded massive footsteps retreating into darkness, trees snapping under enormous weight. The sound waves physically knocked her backward. Whatever made that call was larger than anything supposed to exist in those mountains. Did you know that in 2017, a Russian physicist accidentally opened a door to another version of reality? Dr. Alexei Volkov was running routine quantum field experiments at Moscow's Institute for Theoretical Physics. The lab had maximum security clearance, sealed chambers, and constant surveillance. Everything seemed normal until their particle accelerator started showing impossible energy readings. Then objects began appearing in locked rooms with no explanation. Security cameras captured the strangest footage imaginable. Laboratory equipment was materializing out of thin air, but with completely different designs. Even stranger, some instruments had Russian text written in Cyrillic letters that didn't exist. The readings spiked beyond anything they'd ever seen. That's when Volkov made a decision that changed everything. He stepped directly into the dimensional breach. When he returned hours later, he was barely recognizable, shaking and disoriented. He spoke about a Moscow with different architecture, where his parallel self had died 3 years earlier. In his hands were newspaper clippings from another timeline and his own death certificate. Did you know that security cameras captured medieval doors opening by themselves in an ancient English castle? In 2021, Yorkshire's Helmsley Castle operated like any normal tourist site during the day. But at night, security guard William Thompson began his routine patrols through the empty stone corridors. That's when the cameras started recording something impossible. Heavy wooden doors, some weighing hundreds of pounds, began swinging open on their own. Each time a door moved, Thompson's equipment measured sudden temperature drops of 20 degrees. The strangest part? The doors only opened at specific times, matching historical records of a medieval siege. Thompson decided to investigate, following the phantom presence through the castle chambers. The cameras captured doors opening in perfect sequence ahead of him, like an invisible force was leading him deeper inside. When he reached the Great Hall, every single door slammed shut at once. He was trapped inside for 3 hours, pounding on the doors until morning staff found him. The footage shows his terror as he realized something ancient still roamed those halls. Did you know that 28 fifth graders simultaneously channeled murder victims during a math test? Thomas Mitchell had been teaching at Lincoln Elementary in Sacramento for 20 years, but October 18, 2019 changed everything. It started like any normal testing day. Students sat quietly at their desks, pencils scratching against paper. But then Thomas noticed something strange. 12 students were writing frantically outside the answer boxes. They scribbled in margins, on their desks, even on their arms. When he approached, they quickly covered their papers with trembling hands. After collecting the tests, Thomas discovered something horrifying. All 12 students had written identical messages in different handwriting styles. Detailed descriptions of brutal murders, exact burial locations, names of killers who were never caught. The children wrote with perfect accuracy about crimes they couldn't possibly know about. Thomas later learned the school was built on top of an old cemetery. Every testing day, the students channeled different victims, desperate to tell their stories. The dead were using the children to speak. Did you know that a taxi driver in Chicago discovered he had been dead for weeks while still driving passengers? Tony Rodriguez had been working the night shift for 18 years, picking up clubgoers and hospital workers across downtown Chicago. On December 7, 2020, everything seemed normal until he picked up Maria at 2:15 a.m. outside Cook Hospital. She was well-dressed, paid exact cash, and spoke normally during the 20-minute ride to Lincoln Park. But when Tony arrived and turned around, his back seat was completely empty. The cash payment was still sitting on the passenger seat. Over the following weeks, this kept happening with different passengers, all picked up from hospitals or accident scenes. They all paid exact fare and vanished upon reaching their destinations. Tony finally investigated and discovered something terrifying. Every single vanishing passenger had died at the exact locations where he picked them up. He was giving final rides to souls trying to reach home one last time. Then Tony found his own name on the hospital's casualty list from a heart attack that occurred while he was supposedly still driving. Did you know that a hospital janitor discovered why patients kept dying from the same mysterious illness for over 50 years? James Wilson had cleaned Memorial Hospital's halls for 12 years, working the graveyard shift when the corridors were empty and silent. But on a cold January night in 2022, everything changed. At exactly 3:15 a.m., James saw Mr. Patterson walking slowly down the third-floor hallway. The problem was, Patterson had died 6 hours earlier. The dead man turned, made direct eye contact with James, then continued walking toward the pediatric wing. Night after night, more deceased patients joined the procession, all heading to the same destination. James followed them to the hospital's original wing from 1952, where they gathered around a sealed room. Inside, he discovered files documenting a medical experiment from 1968 that killed 23 patients. The dead were trying to warn him. The hospital was still using the same deadly procedures. The administration had been covering up the deaths for decades,